Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and as always, I'm joined by Ethan Duffy. And of course, today we are reviewing Carlton v Essendon. Another routine loss for the Carlton Football Club, 34 points. Of course, the final scores were Carlton 6 goals, 16 to 6 goals, 16, 52 to Essendon 13 goals, 8, 86. As I just said, 34-point loss in front of 89,000 at the MCG. Daffy boy, we went to the game last night together, which was an absolute blast. Good to see you. But how are you, mate? And how are you recovering after the loss that we saw last night?
Yeah, I was talking to you this morning, and it definitely, sometimes the day after a loss, you kind of move on. But I've come to the point where, people go, "Oh, just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Try to distance yourself." But you really can't distance yourself because it's our love of the team. It's just it's an addiction almost, in a bad way, in a good time, in a good day, in a good way sometimes. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, it was just it's tough. It's really tough to really you can't. It's just hard to fathom where we're at right now. We're 15th. We've got 4 wins, and realistically, people start talking about next week or the week after and going, "Oh, we can win that, win that." We're going to really struggle to win games if we keep playing like this. The Sun, people are going, "Oh, we'll beat the Suns," but it's all about respecting your opponent as a fan base as well. We've got to stop looking at the future. We've got to stop talking about the future. We've got to think about the now, week by week. Obviously it's round 14 next week and our season's done and dusted, really. But there's still 10 games to go. If we just keep focusing week by week, because we've got to find improvement somewhere, because at the moment there's, like we were talking about it last night in the game, I don't really see an improvement in our game from last year to this year. Everything's gotten worse, maybe apart from some individuals, maybe. But and once again, the opposition weren't like fantastic. Apart from the third quarter, I thought the Bombers are really good in the third quarter and really took it to us at the start of the third quarter. But realistically, we're down at halftime when we shot ourselves in the foot by our foot skills again. So I'm not sure what we're going to do. And we turned up again, for fuck's sake. Like, I think it was the same crowd today. I went to the Melbourne Collingwood game. It was the same crowd today as last night. So shows you that we're still sticking around after mediocre season after mediocre season, because our membership's growing, Pato, each year. Yeah. And I think it will come a time where maybe next year that won't be the case, because people are seriously hurt. Yeah. People say it's just a game, but seriously isn't a game.
Yeah.
It's our life.
Yeah, spot on. Of course, as you said, there was about 89,000. Not too sure of the exact number. I think it just went over 90,000 today, but I don't know of the exact number. You were, of course, there for the game today for Collingwood, Melbourne. But of course, as I just said, and as you said as well, 89,000 at the G last night for a game that was known as a marquee game, but it was the first kind of series of it for hopefully the next few years. But it's also between two clubs that have been very mediocre for the past decade, 2 decades, 3 decades even. I mean, not 3, but that's pushing it just a little. But we haven't been great sides, and I think Essendon. I mean, credit to Essendon supporters as well. Like, yes, there might be some dickheads out there, but of course they love their club as much as we do as well. So even last night, like seeing them celebrating stuff and seeing their side play solid and get the 4 points was heartbreaking for me to see, because and I'll actually mention this. Of course, we left early, and that was the first time that me as a supporter, I have never left a game early, and we left halfway through the fourth quarter. I was saying to you, I was like, "Nah, I don't think I can leave." Then I just looked, I'm like, "No."
You just like. And we see supporters leave at halftime and 3/4 time. We left with 10 minutes to go, so it's realistically you're leaving early, but you're really leaving it until the last minute. Like, realistically, we could have gone home at 3/4 time knowing the result. And I think the real first time I've ever done that was against Collingwood this year. It was just hurting that bad that I just can't go through the pain of seeing them celebrate and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Because you've got to save yourself at some point. And last night I said to you, I turned to you, I go, we've got to go, mate.
Mm.
Like this is not good. Like you're sitting there watching them laughing and good on them. Like credit to them. Like they're playing a good brand of footy and with definitely less A graders than we have. So good on them.
Yep, spot on. Of course, we'll move on now to the initial thoughts to kind of, I guess give it a little bit of a recap of our thoughts. So just a few stats and stuff that was, of course, seen from the game before I transitioned into you, Duffy boy. But minus 31 tackles, that was probably the one stat that I find absolutely unbelievable. For us to also have less disposals, but of course for us to have minus 31 tackles after a 34-point loss is just
that's bad.
that is unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
And of course, 16 points, 16 points as well that we actually kicked was unbelievable, and 52 points as well, scored unbelievable. Like once again, we were saying in the preview, we were calling out for a bit more attacking, and of course we got the 16, the 6 goals, 16 score, but still we just aren't converting with those opportunities. Same problems that aren't really being fixed, and that's the only thing that we can really say. And one stat, and I got this from after the game. Fox Footy, of course, posted it. It was after the game, straight after, and Jonathan Brown said this stat. So we had 33 tackles for the game, 33 tackles as a whole for the game, and it's the least amount of tackles that we've had in a game in 8 years. Unbelievable. So, Duff, what is your initial thoughts on the game last night?
Oh, you look at that and you go, Jesus, we've had some bad tackling games in the last few years, actually. Shows you how bad that last night was. I was saying to you last night that it was broken tackles. It's broken tackles all the time, every week. I'd love to see a stat. There's no stat for it, but I'd love to see a stat for broken tackles and unsuccessful tackles because we'd be leading that by a mile. At the stoppage, blokes are running through easy. But yeah, minus 31 tackles when you're chasing arse all game, or specifically in the second half. Like we barely had the ball at some stages. 16 behinds again. Obviously, Melbourne went 8-18, but they were clearly playing a better brand of footy today. They were playing a hard, rugged game, and it was a hard, rugged game against a really good side. And they weren't converting, but they didn't drop their heads. They went again. They laid hard tackles, and obviously minus 31 tackles, 33 tackles of the game. You're not going to be getting easy kicks and easy free kicks because you're just not laying the tackles, Paddo. And I think Paddy Dow actually had more tackles than 15 of our players, and he came on in the last quarter. And that's another topic as well. I'm not really sure why he wasn't put on earlier. Considering that start of that third quarter, we were getting killed out the middle. And that's like there's a lot of problems on field in terms of players. I think they're the number one issue right now. But, geez, the coaches the last few weeks and this season have been, like, pitiful, mate. Like, there's just selection's not good enough. The starts of games, obviously last night, we were improved, weren't we? We had the ball, we're getting outside 50. But how many times were our forwards pushed up so high? We didn't like everyone goes, oh, Charlie was 0 goals 4, but he was at 50. He didn't have that next option to kick to. He had to go for goal from like 55 because no one was in the 50. Like that's coaching. So you get to quarter time and you go, fuck, not even quarter time. You call the runner at a break or after a goal, just stick back. And it's just been our issue the whole season. And I seriously can't see these assistant coaches staying at the end of the year because what are they doing? Seriously, what are they doing? And there's so many problems, Batto. Like it started from round one. There's more questions than answers again with this team. And I thought we were getting more answers last year, but we're getting more questions again.
And we are actually right now in the same position, if not worse, as what we were in 2018, 2019. And that's an unbelievable stat about Paddy Dow, and that to me just shows the effort. I think like he obviously came on with a fresh leg, so also that might have a reasoning for it. because like as to what, because I think he finished with about 7 touches as well. So that's quite a solid game for a guy that came on in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, with Dow especially, I was seeing him having just a little bit more flair and a little bit more
Yeah.
drive for the football, because it looked like he was out there playing for his life in a sense.
Yep.
And I was seeing that, and I'm like, well done, Paddy Dow. Like that's what you want to see. But and then it was other things where I'm just like seeing broken tackles, and it would be a contested ball between a one-on-one contest, and it would be one person going one hand in on a tackle. I think one of them was Blake Acres by memory. I don't want to single him out, but he's probably the one that, like, one person that comes to mind, where you put one hand on the jumper and they kind of just shrug it off. And I'm like, mate, like, tackle, like, we aren't learned to tackle like that. We are learned to, we want to hurt the opponent. That's the difference.
Yes.
It just doesn't seem like we are wanting to hurt. We don't want to hunt for the fucking football. We don't want to hunt. There's no hunger. There's no pride for the jumper. There's no pride for the monogram. There's no responsibility. It seems that they are representing 90,000 members. It doesn't seem like they really go out there and represent us proudly. It's more like they only care about their own feelings and say, yeah, we feel it as well. So of course you feel it, but you are out there controlling it. You can control the outcome. We can't. We have to watch it. That's the difference. So they can come out. We spoke about before the episode. They can come out and say, Charlie Kerner can come out and say, we're hurting and stuff. Yeah, we know what it's like. We are in it together. Of course, we're in it together. But the difference is that you're getting paid a lot of money by the club to go out there and you do your job. If you don't do your job, you have to. There's something down to, like, there is a reasoning for that. That if you don't go out and do your job, you need just find a way to kind of respond next week. This has been going on for 10 weeks. We've had one win since round 4, and that was against West Coast. We've had one win, and we were meant to be a top 4 chance, if not a lock for top 8. And now we are 15th on the ladder. That is just, when you think about it in that sense, I actually can't believe that we are in this situation right now. And so we'll move on now to a segment that we had a couple of years ago, and we've brought it back. We want to try and bring their supporters into the podcast. And of course, it's the questions that we ask the fans of the channel to ask us what you want, whatever is on your mind after the game, and we come on here and answer. So we'll go through a few questions. We have plenty of questions, which is great to see, but we'll probably try and get through as many as possible, but we'll just see how we go in time. But the first things first, very plain and simple. This is from Jess Forder. When will it end, Daff? When will it end? When will it end?
I think we both asked that question a lot the last few years. I'm not putting any timeline on it because there's no guarantees in AFL football. I think that's what we started to believe. Like, there's no guarantees. Look at the Saints, for Christ's sake. They haven't won a grand final since the 60s. You know, there's no guarantees in football. There's 18 teams. There's soon going to be 19 teams. It's going to be making it harder to win a premiership. And we, I think combined for us and Essendon in the AFL era have won 3 premierships combined. And we're out here showing our cups, Beto.
Yeah.
Like, I'm proud. I am proud of the history.
Yeah.
That's not me bagging that. I am proud of our history. I love my club. But us guys, we don't relate to any of that. We've seen this club turn from the rich history, massive club, it still is a massive club, to a joke.
Yeah.
This is like, and there's no guarantees of where we're going to be at next year. Who knows next year?
Yeah.
We can't talk about next year because now it's just not good enough.
No. And to add on to that before we move on to our next question, I get a lot of messages, especially last night, I got a lot of messages from supporters that don't support Carlton saying, I actually feel sorry for you.
Yes.
If you are in that state where if you are supporting this club as much as we do, and you're getting messages from other supporters saying, I actually feel sorry. Like, I got a message from a man of mine who's a Collingwood supporter, and he said, mate, I actually feel bad for you.
Same. Pie supporter. He felt bad for it.
Yeah, feel like, and like that's a little bit of salt in the wound in a way, just because
Yes, it is.
like it just makes it hurt even more because that's a arch rival sort of fan that you're kind of wanting to have that little bit of banter, the competitive
Yeah.
banter. Um, but yeah, and then like in a sense of like it actually feels kind of embarrassing, and it's
It
actually
is.
somewhat worse because
Yes.
I don't want them to
No.
feel sad for me. I would rather be the other side of the spectrum, being proud of my club,
Yeah.
going out we spoke about it last night. Like I want to go to a football game and know what the result is going to be, and it's down to the opposition and what they
Yes.
produce. I
Yeah.
want to know that I want to trust every single week that I see Carlton football. That's
Yeah.
all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
And it's every single week it's a little bit different, but it's still the same shit. And it's just complete shit. That's what it is. It is
Yep.
complete
Yep.
and utter shit. So
I
next
think we
question.
answered the question.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the next question. Of course, from Riley Burke. Does this year feel, so? This is actually a good question because this is something that we've actually been kind of speaking
Yep.
about a bit. Does this year feel worse than 2018 or 2019, considering the promise there was heading into 2023?
Oh, 100%. I thought, 2018, 19, 2017, 2018, 19, we were growing a bit in terms of, you could see player improvement and we were having a crack and we were kind of just in that development stage. But I feel like this year is the worst that I've felt as a supporter because
Yeah.
we don't really, this is the list. This is the list we've got. This is supposed to be, I think in 2019, the club released this thing called the Carlton Way,
And
and they said this would be an AFLW and an AFL Premiership by 2023, and we can't even put it to a win together in 2023. So, like 2021 was terrible as well. Like that's what I thought was rock bottom, and then we got to last year. I was like, okay, fresh coaching staff, righto. And then it's happened again, and it's almost worse because we've seen these guys play good football. So, good question, but yeah, I think it's worse. It definitely is worse because you got superstars out there doing not winning games of football. So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, completely spot on. To add on to that, which is another good question from Tash G.
Yep.
How can we turn it around? Is it, like whatever comes to mind, there's so many things and there's so many more questions and answers that we can't answer this question. But we
Yeah.
ask every single week. But if
Mm.
you were, I mean, I can remember saying the exact same sentence. If you were to put one finger on it, like a couple of weeks ago, what would it be? But
You
now
can't.
the question is, it's not necessarily the problem because we know that there is a problem, but
Yeah.
now it's
Yeah.
down the solution and how can we turn around. So great, a very good question from Tash G. But Daff, how can we
Mm.
turn around?
It's tough. Like you said, you can't put a finger on it, but there is ways. There is definitely ways. There's so many different ways you can fix it because you can see, there's certain clubs you've seen in the past where they've really fallen under expectation. I feel like teams like Melbourne when they made the prelim and then they came bottom the last 2019 and 20, they weren't very good. Richmond 2013, 14, 15, they made finals. 2016, they had the same list and bottomed out, and they ended up in the premiership. So there's obviously something they've tweaked between that time, the shit time, and the premiership that's really put them in good stead. And it's got to be list. It's got to be list. It's got to be certain game plan. And it starts at the board level, like I said, Pato. These people are making decisions on behalf of me and you and every person listening in this podcast and the members. They've made bad decision after bad decision for the football club. They've got to go. They've got to go.
Yeah.
And fortunately, their egos are getting ahead of themselves, some of these people. And they're, rather than having the best interest of the football club in their heart, they're trying to keep their job. And that is exactly what I'm feeling with all this, with Sayers and Cook backing in Voss. Because if Voss gets sacked, they're gone because they made the decision to hire him, Pato. You know what I mean? They're trying to preserve their job and support Voss. So if Voss gets sacked, right? If Voss gets sacked end of the year, and you go, there's no way the president stays on or Cook stays on because they made the decision. Are we really going to trust them to pick our next coach?
Yeah.
Again? Like, I hate to say it. I know people are like, we can't sack another coach, but why can't we?
Yeah.
Because we seem to be picking the wrong ones.
You
know, I'm not saying it'd be shit. Like, I don't want it to happen. You know, I've been saying this, but if it does happen, we've got to just, I don't know. There's got to be a way that us members can vote in the board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we have a say because we're more important than these guys in their business suits and rocking up to games and thinking they're the top shit. We are the people of the club. And you can see it in sports like soccer, where owners are so important to the team's success in terms of how much money they're putting into the club. Obviously, it's different at AFL level because there's salary caps, but in soccer, there isn't. There isn't salary caps. Obviously, the better teams that their owners are putting money into the club and getting fans around it, they're more successful. And then you see teams down the bottom with their people up the top, if they're not really caring about the club and not putting the best interest of the fans first, that you're never going to improve. You're never going to improve. And you can keep, having these sponsorships off field and making money. Carlton will always make money. That's never going to be the issue. It's never going to be the issue, Pato. We could single-handedly keep this club afloat with membership numbers.
Yeah.
We've got Hyundai as our member for 30 years. We've never had bad, obviously here and there you might have sponsors hop off due to on-field performance. But you're gonna have to improve soon. Otherwise, members are gonna hop off, Pato.
Yeah.
And that's where clubs fall apart. And you can see, obviously North Melbourne's getting a little bit better recently, but in recent years, they've hopped off. Those clubs hop off and they play these graveyard Sunday arvos, 440. They get 25,000 at Marvel Stadium, and it's sad. We've got 83,000. We're 4 and 8. 4 and 8, and we're making these people more important. Well, they definitely think they're more important than we are. So that's where it's got to change from the top.
Yeah. And especially with the board, because the difference between the board and with us, the board, they bring in the sponsors and they probably make all the big decisions.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Great. We are the guys who keep the club stable because we pay the memberships. So without us, there's no chance. There's no chance because with sponsorship, and this is what we've kind of learned in media and learning, we've kind of learned this with uni. So we're kind of learning about how sponsorship deals are done within sporting clubs and how it's all done. And for a sponsorship to come into a club to sponsor, the club have to give something back to the sponsorship as well. So it's not just one way. Sponsorship have to also trust that the club is in good hands, that they're actually looking forward so they can sponsor their sponsorship well. Like they're not going to just give it to any club. They're not just going to, like Hyundai wouldn't just give it to any club. Like, so say for example, say for like a Tasmanian team that in the next few years when Tasmania do come in, the sponsors are so important because they actually are the ones who are trusting that Tasmania are actually going to be a solid team in the next 10 years. So that's the difference. And I think with the board, I just don't think they could ever leave because there's no one that could actually kick them out except themselves. And that's the difference. And that's what annoys me because it's not like it's a coaching role that can be sacked. It's the board that can actually put aside their egos, as you said, and actually say, look, I'm actually not healthy for this spot. I am going to step down and let someone else come in to push the club forward. If they are Carlton supporters, they aren't doing that. They are more thinking about themselves and their ego and thinking, oh no, if I lose this, what am I going to do after this? How about put your ego aside and actually think about the 90,000 members and many more supporters around the world who aren't members. Think about them for a sec, rather than yourself and your executive decisions. But we move on to the next question. We'll move on to a good mate of ours, Duffy Boy, which is of course Jesse Mertens, and he has a few questions that he asked, but we'll just keep to two. So I'll kind of combine them together. So should we sell Harry Mackay? That was one of them, and the other question was, where's the heart? Where's the heart? So, of course, Jesse is a kind of a new Carlton supporter. He's, of course, moved from Queensland, and he's a great guy, and he's a very passionate sporting
Yes.
supporter. And I know that when he's kind of supported Carlton, he's actually quite passionate, and he actually knows a lot about the
Yes.
game, which is
Yeah.
great. So, so should we sell at Harry Mackay, Daffy boy? And also, where's the heart? So I think you'll know I think I know the first answer for the first question, but more to do with the next one as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it is a good question. Because in a lot of sports around the world, like in soccer particularly, like I was touching on, that if players are performing in these massive clubs around the world, Man United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, they're out the door. They're out the door. Like they're not waiting. They're not holding on for hope. They're out the door, and they sell them on, whether it's a good value or not, because holding on to these players. But with Harry, I don't think he's obviously had the greatest year, but I just don't think he's the problem. I think it's more the bottom half. For your question, Jesse, I just don't think he's the real issue. I know his performances haven't been great, and our forward line's just been really underwhelming this season. But I think that'll probably do more bad than good for us, unless we're getting pick one and 784 players. I'm not going to take that offer. So I think he still will be a good contributor in the future for the club. And I think there's a lot of other guys you can talk about. There's a lot of players that have been on the list for a long time who haven't played many games, and they provide nothing, and we just hold on to them for no reason at all. They play twos for 7 years, and then we fuck them off. So they take all the salary, and we waste it on another player. And you see clubs like Geelong and Collingwood have these guys in the twos that aren't wasting time. If 2 years you're gone. That's Lockie Fogarty was at Geelong for 2 years. That was his contract when he got drafted. Drafted 2 years gone. Yeah. No, they're not holding on. Oh, he might come good. He might come good. We've got 5 guys last night, I reckon, who were almost like fringe players. Like I've rated Matt Owie start of the season, but seriously, if he's playing like that for the next few weeks, clubs would not play him. Pato. No. Matt Cottrell. Yeah. Jordan Boyd. Like I know Boyd, was okay, but we've got all these players that we hold out hope for. You know what I mean? Like Fogarty's in the twos. Jack Carroll's in the twos. People go, I'll just play him. They might not be good enough, though. That's the issue right now we're having. And we've got too many fringe players that stay on the list for too long, list cloggers, as people say. List cloggers. And they're just too much. And what was the second question? I'll answer that short.
Of course, where's the heart? So if there was one thing, I think we all kind of know what it is. But if you were to put that's the question. Where is the heart of the Carlton Football Club?
I think there's no unity in the team, and that was evident on Chincotta's goal.
Yep.
Like he kicks a ripping goal in the middle of the ground, grabs the jumper. He's up. First goal in AFL, Pato.
Yeah.
First goal, 85,000 at the G against Essendon. And Doc comes over. Doc jogs over, and he pats him on the back. Take me back to the first round 2022, right? Doc comes back from his cancer recovery. Everyone's all over him.
Unbelievable.
Why can't he do that? What's he doing? It's got to work both ways, Doc. It's got to work both ways. He's a great guy off the field, 100%. He's a champion in terms of his recovery. But right now, if you're playing on the field, you're a Carlton man, you've got to represent us. And he goes and just pats him on the back. Righto, mate. And there's no unity, Pato. Harry Mackay kicked a goal just before half time, and it was just Charlie giving him a high five and a pat on the ass. Like it's 2021 all over again. There's no unity, and I don't know. It's too hard, Pato, because it's just unity. They don't seem to. There's no connection at all. There is no connection whatsoever.
Yeah, just shambles. Like we as supporters, we don't know what it is, and we are up to round 14 next week.
We still don't
know what it is. It's like I don't know how we're still doing this. Because it's just same old shit every single week.
Yeah.
I'm just over it. So unfortunately, we only have enough time for one more question. We are so grateful for how many
Yeah,
questions.
100%.
It was absolutely fantastic. So the last question that we'll finish with is a really good question for a good mate of ours, Barney Hamilton as well. A really good question. So I think it's a good way to finish as well. So this is a good question for next year, of course. So his question is, how many players do we trade/delist? Then he says, I think we could have at least 10 to 15 players that he could delist or trade. So, and he says, is that too much? So, Duff, do you think that's a reasonable number? And is that too much? Is that too many players for us to delist come the year's end?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I 100% agree with what he's saying. Today, we actually were doing that, looking through the list a little bit in trades and delistings and stuff like that. And there's a lot of players that really don't add much to this list and may have to be out the door. And there's got to be, look, I know we had a list, but there's going to be players not from our list of trades and delistings that'll be gone. And they could be big names because I'm not saying, I think, there'll be, Sam Walsh's and I think Jacob Wiedering will stay, but why can't they be on offer? Because you go, Jesus, man, like we might need a little bit of a reshift in our list. So no, I agree with Barney. I think 10 to 15, maybe 10 minimum.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of delistings this year. There'll be a massacre in the trade period and list management. But I think, you have 10 or 15, that's not really going to affect your list too much. And then the trade period's going to be massive, I think, because there's going to be free agents and there's going to be players who play at VFL clubs that can add more to this list.
Yeah.
I think that's where we've got to start looking. Not like, Collingwood, they picked up Ash Johnson mid-season. They picked up Noble mid-season. They were both mid-season pickups and they're on top of the ladder.
Yeah.
They might not be superstars, but they work well in a good system. So rather than going out and buying a player for $900K a year like we've been doing for the last fucking 10 years, maybe do some recruiting and look outside.
Yeah, completely spot on. Okay, so now we'll move on to I think that we saw yesterday at the game, Duffy Boy, and to us we were just shell shocked of what we were actually seeing. So the title, I guess, is the disconnection with our players, which is obviously quite evident the past 3 or 4 weeks with what we've seen with the players. But a few moments that we saw that we'll touch on just quickly between a few players is just something that got us very, very worried. So we're not singling out these players. It's more just to do with these moments and what they actually mean. So one thing that we saw was Lewis Young not together with the defensive group. So it was a goal that was scored for Essendon. So they just kicked a goal. Yep. It was obviously the 5 defenders that were there, and Lewis Young was in. I don't even know where he was. He was just he was about maybe 5-10 meters away, but he was a little bit away from the group. And and then that's when you said, "What are they doing? Like, talk together. Like if they're the group, talk together." Of course, also Silvani talks to Mitch McGovern about his frustration with Lewis Young with what we saw. So, of course, it was just when Peter Wright marked it right in front of where we were sitting. And Lewis Young was on the mark, and Jack Silvani was right next to McGovern, and it looked like he was just a bit of a not a good frustration, a bit of a bad. That's really bad. So I don't know how to explain it. I think you can explain a little bit more, a little bit better than what I can, but it's a little bit more of Silvani was just saying to Mitch McGovern, he that needs to change. And that's not what you want. You want the constructive where you're better than this. You are better than and it more looked like Silvani was. I mean, obviously he's a supporter deep down. He's a blue bagger as well, so he wants his side to win. But that's what I was kind of saying. Of course, Blake Hakers repeated hacks in the air to our forward line. Repeated just inside 50s, which we saw a lot last night. But it was, I mean, I don't want to single out Blake Hakers once again because there were plenty of them. But Blake Hakers was one of the guys that just kept on kicking it high and deep into the forward line. And there was no one, like, it would always be a Gordon Ridley or a Laverde intercepting the ball. And it was just unbelievable. So, of course, Daffy Boy, that was just a few examples of the disconnection with our team. So, on those 3 examples, and you might have some more as well, what's your thoughts on the disconnection?
Yeah, I'll start off with the Silvani one. I think In a sense, you kind of agree with what he's saying because I thought Louis was terrible last night. I'm not singing. I think most of the team were terrible, but Jesus, man, like he was giving Peter Wright plenty of space, and I think most forwards would have taken advantage of that. And obviously, Peter Wright was kicking straight last night, which he usually does. So, but yeah, for me, I think it just shows the disconnect. Like I said before about the whole Chincotta situation, no one getting around him. Very similar to Liam Stocker in 2021 against Melbourne when no one got around him for his first goal. And the way we were playing that time, we weren't playing very well. No connection at all. Same thing again. So I think there comes a time where you do need to just look each other in the eye and go, like you said, not good enough at all. Like what you got to be, fixing that. But there was a couple of times. I think the one where Louis was just standing at full back and Peter Wright let up and Silvani went up for the punch or whatever, and then he just turned around and just yelled at him, which I don't mind. I don't mind a bit of that. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you like? Where are we?
Yeah.
But then you can't be like with the McGovern one. He just looked like he was talking a bit bad about a teammate. But I do understand the frustration from Jack because it was getting to a point where like it was hurting us a bit in terms of every time the ball went up in the air, Silvani or someone will go up and he doesn't know if Wright's on his ass. Like he can't trust his teammate to be able to play him one-on-one. So, and then on Blake Acres, like that first 10 minutes, I think he had plenty of the ball in that wing, and I think I don't know, he's got to be up there with, we're talking about how we got him in the trade period for a future fourth. He's starting to look like he's worth a future fourth round pick. And I think we overrated him again. I think we overrated another pickup. And you can see we're going, oh, Freo, they're letting him go easy, righto. They're laughing right now. We're going, thank God he's out of here. Thank God he's out of here. Because for me, he's too slow for a winger. And his ball use isn't good enough. I've never seen a player look unable to, lower his eyes as bad as he is currently. And it's really reflecting the whole team. He's currently got the Carlton disease, like many of our players, losing their skill and actual ability to play football. But yeah, it's a disconnection, and I think there's a disconnection between the coaching staff and the playing group currently because they're not getting anything through to them because same things have happened all year, Pato.
Yeah, spot on. To touch on Acres quickly before we move on to our next segment. Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think it's kind of a little bit more of a Carlton disease that we've kind of given him because at Fremantle he was quite
last season.
Yeah,
last season, though. I feel like it's similar with Williams. Basing them off little spurts.
Yeah.
Akers wouldn't have left St Kilda in the first place if he was good enough. So I know there's different situations, but yeah, it's tough to watch him right now.
I think with Acres though, I think it is like it would be different if we gave Acres a first rounder, but we went very, I guess, safe with it and gave him a fourth rounder. So I mean, like a future fourth rounder. So that's why I think at the time I was like, there's no risk there. There's no risk at all. So that's why I'm saying last year with what the season that he put up, almost all like pretty much up there for an all Australian winner, all Australian winger. If they actually use the all Australian and they put the wing position as actual wingers, he would be very close up there with a Josh Dacos or an Ed Langdon. So that's why this year he had the skill last year. He had the lowering of the eyes. He had the capability to use the football IQ under the Fremantle system to, I reckon the one thing that I would say is this year is just feeling a little bit of pressure because he was one of those players that was a high, like quite a talked about trade to a big club like Carlton. I think that's probably the one thing that I can put a finger on is I guess the spotlight on him and moving to a big club. But also, on the other hand, that shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter at all because that's why you have, I guess, psychologists and stuff within the club because you can actually work on that through the season. But he's been like this all season, Daff. That's the difference. And
maybe I reckon maybe apart from the first month, I thought he was okay. Maybe round 1 he struggled, but I think from round 2 to 6, 7, I thought he was okay because that Giants game was his best game where his shoulder was bugging.
Yeah,
and now he's fully fit and playing worse. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I mean, like that's like completely spot on. I didn't really have much more to add on just because I think there's not really much else you can say. And we actually haven't really touched on it, but I guess there's not been any players other than probably an Adam Chera or a Charlie Curnow to a stretch. There's been no players this year that have progressed.
No.
And that is just unbelievable. So, so we'll move on to our next segment. This is probably the biggest one. This is probably the most, I guess, just, I mean, it's baffling to a stretch. It really is. Because you actually look at the stats that we're about to read out. So this is, of course, lack of leadership. And we're just going to go through the 6 players. So this is the core. This is the players that, other than Sam Doherty, we have drafted all these players to come to the Carlton Football Club. Sam Doherty was pretty much that as well because he left 2 years after joining Brisbane, or maybe 1 year. So he obviously didn't spend most of his career at Brisbane. He obviously pretty much started his career at Carlton. So Patrick Cripps, 53 wins, 116 losses at a 31% win ratio, Daffy Boy. Sam Doherty, 56 wins, 96 losses, 37% win ratio. That, of course, includes Brisbane. Jacob Weitering, 46 wins, 98 losses, 32% win ratio. Sam Walsh, 34 wins, 55 losses, 38% win ratio. That's our highest out of all these stats, so that's the highest. Harry Mackay, 35 wins, 62 losses, 36% win ratio. And this is the big one. Charlie Curnow, 27 wins, 68 losses, 28% win ratio. Daff, out of those, I guess we hold them up as leaders. That isn't leadership. Like, how can an Ollie Hollins or a Lockie Cowan move up and say, oh, yep, I can listen to, there's not a lot of successful players around here, is there? You've got to start like that, like Sam Walsh, who's probably the highest win ratio player out of obviously that core, but probably would be pretty close, like pretty high up there out of the whole club for like in terms of win ratio. There's not much at all. And that's one thing where we spoke about it last year and it's bloody come back to bite us in the bum. Luke Bruce. We should have gone after Luke Bruce. We should have even gone after Luke Shields as a stretch, even just to have that person come in and just, I guess, I don't know, like a Liam Shields, like he's like at North Melbourne, but he's not really doing much there, but he's still a successful player. And the players around him would be absolutely thriving in that situation. So, Daff, lack of leadership. Obviously, the stats don't lie. What's your thoughts on that?
I just think, with leaders, we just don't have a leader that's in the kind of later stage of their career, like the latest stage of their career. I think, obviously, we lost that with Simo in the side a couple of years ago. And obviously Murph finishing up pretty early. So I feel like we have a bit of a gap, like you said, in terms of leadership. And I think another name you could say is probably Jack Gunston. They're winners. They're all winners. They go to clubs and, they come to a club like Carlton and set the standards. They don't have to be captain, they don't have to be vice captain, but they know how to win games of football. When the time comes to win a game of football, like last night, like weeks before, these guys know how to show up in big games. And I'll start off with the first guy on this list. Tell me a time when Patrick Cripps came up big in a clutch moment and not let us down. In a real clutch moment, whether it's round 23 last year, certain moments in games. Like you could say the Brisbane game, maybe 2019, but that was a superhuman, performance. But when it's, like a 5 minutes or a second quarter where someone needs to break open the game. Tell me a time, Pato. Tell me a time that he's really broken out and won us the game in terms of, or done something right, not just won us the game, like landed a massive tackle that's got us up and about. There's certain moments I just don't think he's done it, or he lines up for goal and misses, or he, passes it off and misses, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Like there's moments where leaders stand up, where it's Bontempelli, there's Pendlebury, there's Gorn, there's whoever, Jack Viney today. Today he lifted because Clayton Oliver was out. He knew he had to be the man to be in and under against a top team. And what happened, Pato? They won the game off the back of players like that. Off the back of players like that. And you know how much we love Cripps, right? But there comes a time, Pato, where he's got to just win us the game. Like, I know, obviously there's been years where he's carried us. All right. But there's when we like even last year at the back end of the year, those close losses, take it upon yourself to take a mark, kick the goal, Cripper.
Yeah.
Kick the goal. Don't be the hero. Pass it off. Hit the target. You know what I mean? I think there's a layer of that, and another player that's starting to frustrate me a bit is Sam Doherty. Moments in games, Pat. I think there was one where we marked it at half forward and he calls for the ball with 3 Essendon guys around him, and then he's under pressure and kicks it inside 50 when we don't need a rush. Like there's, you know what I mean? It's all about tempo, AFL football, and there's certain times where you go slow and you go fast, and these guys don't know when to. They don't know when to, Pato. How many times has Cripps been done holding the ball in certain moments where he's overdone it or played on or tried to kick on his left foot, which he can't? And like one of the instances is the St Kilda game, or I think it was the Dogs game, where he's doing the left foot snap, misses. He kicks that goal up and about. I'm not trying to single guys out, but these guys set the standards for winning games. He won the Brownlow. Yep. And how many games did he win last year? The most I've seen in fucking years. And it just comes a time where you've got to just take it on and win us the game. And all these guys, Doherty, Wiedering, Walsh is obviously younger, but what's happening to him? What has happened to him, Pato? He's got no impact. He had 35 touches. No impact on the game. Harry, has he won the game off his own boot? No. He's kicked 7 and 6s, whatever, but that was games where we've won by 4 goals. When the times are tough, these guys letting us down all the time. Charlie Curno's, had some big moments in big games, but when it comes, those close games where a game needs to be, not in the last quarter or not when we're 4 goals up and you celebrate in a six goal bag. When the times are tough and you can't get it going, these players should be able to get it going for us, and they can't. They can't. There's a lack of leadership on field, and there's a lack of leadership in the coach's box. There is clearly, and that's another disconnection. The leaders to the whole group, and then the leaders on the board, the CEO, the president, aren't connected in whatsoever. There's all different mixed messaging. Brian Cook's going, we're backing in Voss. And then Sayers 1 week saying, we'll see you at the end of the year. There's no consistent messaging. And that is clearly a problem.
You said it beautifully there, Duffy boy. And to name all those players, so spoke about, I guess just like say with like a Cripps, we can't put it on this guy, but why not? This is the captain of this is the role model of the club. This is the guy that this is the marquee player that we hold this guy. This guy didn't have to say yes to captains. This guy didn't have to say yes to captaincy. He didn't have to. He didn't have to sign the deal when we signed him in 2021. He didn't have to do that, but he did. So he said, "Okay, I'll step up as captain." All right. So if he's not performing and if he's not getting his players to rally around him and in the big clutch moments when you need to step up as an individual performer, professional athlete, for one, if you that is your job, Cripps. That is your job. And we can't, and we say, we can't really single out these players, but we actually can to Cripps. Because he's got he like, I was speaking to my girlfriend last night and I was actually saying, I was like, God, I feel so bad for Cripps. And she said a really good thing. She actually said, why do you feel sorry? He's the guy who is earning so much money. He is the guy who said yes to captaincy. He is the guy that is put this club on his shoulders to say, I am the guy to bring this club to a Premiership Cup. Why can't we put it on this guy? We're too soft. We're too soft. We can't hurt the feelings. Like, I'm sorry, Cripps. You know, and I know that we love him to death. We don't want anyone else to lead this club other than Patrick Cripps. But you need to be accountable to yourself. Where if you aren't performing, the players, like, this is what, and I think this was another thing that was even said last week or the week before about players spend, like, these players would have been playing since they've been 3 or 4. They've been all their life up until they're 18. They've got that opportunity to fulfill their dream of playing AFL football. They are on an AFL list. They play their first AFL game. That's just what baffles me. Because there's players out there who clearly don't want to be there. And to state the blatant obvious and the elephant in the room, that's pretty obvious. There's players who don't want to be out there, and we're not going to single out those players. But there's players who don't want to be out there. And if you don't want to be out there representing the jumper, get fucked. I don't want these guys in the club. And it's very harsh on these players, but they aren't 18. These are the guys that are meant to lead this club forward. And we are 2023, and we're so over being nice and being like, oh, I feel sorry for this guy. I feel sorry for him. Oh, yeah, like even Sam Walsh last night, that photo that was him leaning out. I felt heartbroken, but I was heartbroken for the supporters. Yeah. I wasn't heartbroken for him. I was heartbroken for the supporters. Because as we said earlier, these guys have the chance to change that outcome. They can go out there and change that outcome. They don't go out there and lose by 34 points to an arch rival that has been around for 251, 252 games. They have the chance to go out there and change that outcome. But they don't. Because they don't know how to win fucking AFL games. That is the difference.
We don't know how to win games.
Yeah, they don't know how to win games.
And that's clear off his stats. They do not know how to win games. Yeah. It's tight and tough. After halftime, they don't know how to come out.
Yeah.
And I'll say right now, I don't know if I'm wrong, but after that first Essendon goal after halftime, all the heads dropped. I could see they gave up. I've never seen a team give up that. You could see it, the whole ground. You could see it give up.
Yeah.
Give up. Yeah. And that's when I knew we were done.
Yeah.
You can look around, dropping their heads going, we can't win this. We're up against it.
Yeah.
And if you're an AFL team, look at Collingwood, for Christ's sake. They were no good today. In the last 3 minutes, they turn it into a winnable game with 30 seconds to go. And you can hear it in the crowd.
Yeah.
It is so bad to see that team play with so much confidence because we hate them.
Yeah.
But you've got to respect it. Because you're sitting there going, they know they can come out, they can play shit 3 quarters, and they can come out in the fourth quarter and put up a 6-goal quarter.
Yeah.
We can't. And we were 8 points down, and I knew we were buggered.
Yeah.
I thought we were buggered when we were winning, Pato.
Yeah.
I think it was 21-17 in the second quarter, and we're sitting there going with our arms crossed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing we're stuffed if we cannot get going. And this has been a problem even in our wins this year. Even round 1, it started from the first game. We scored 53 points, Pato, to Richmond.
Yeah.
53 points. All. It was a draw, and it was terrible, and it actually showed where our teams are at the moment. And they're near the 8 now.
Yeah.
After 2 wins. That could have been us.
Yeah.
It could have been us, but now it's out the window.
Yeah. Completely out of the window. It was out of the window 4 weeks ago.
It was out the window. It was out the window almost post Adelaide, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously,
the pressure was mounting, and these leaders couldn't figure it out and couldn't get it done when it was tough. Look at the first quarter of the other round game.
Yeah.
Heads drop, game over.
Yeah. And that's a pressure, like that's the big talked about gather round game where you've been given the first game of the first ever gather round game against Adelaide, and you dish that up in the first quarter. Well, I'm watching that in America. I was watching that in America, and I'm like, God, I can't wait for this game. And I was just watching with my mate, and I'm like, no, they haven't, have they?
Game over at quarter time, and it's happened again and again and again.
Yeah.
And people can talk about undefeated for 5 weeks at the start of the season. I've never seen a team drop from undefeated in 5 weeks to where we are right now, and I can't believe it's happening to us again.
Yeah.
Why us? Why us? Why couldn't it be fucking Freo? Why couldn't it be, you know what I mean? Like, it's just. And last year, you look at it. I was talking to the old man today, and whether you like it or not, like, I know Pies came top 4 last year. I feel like they were lucky last year, and they actually got better this year. I think they were lucky last year. And honestly, it's so sad to say it. Like, the first 10, 11, 12 weeks before we had injuries and stuff like that last year, we were playing better footy than Collingwood were.
100%.
We were playing better footy. And they were obviously, like, good on them. I'm not having a go, but I'm just saying last year they were getting lucky in some games where they were getting close and close and close. And now this year, instead of regressing like we have, they've gone up and beyond.
Yeah.
And they've built on that.
Yeah.
So it's unbelievable because we were playing better footy than them, and now they're top ladder and we're 15th.
Yeah.
So that's on coaching.
And it is. It really is. And like, one more thing to touch on the Melbourne and Collingwood game, and even when I was watching it on the TV, I think it was. I think the commentator was Hamish McLaughlin, and he said there's a pulse, and I'm like. And then I was watching, and then I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 minutes to go, and there was like maybe 16 points, and I'm like, But then they kicked one. They kicked one, and I'm like, and then I'm like, shit, they're coming. And then when Nick Dacos hit that goal, I'm like, they're gonna win this again. I actually thought, I'm like, they're gonna win again, and I just get so heartbroken because I'm like, why can't we produce that football? Why can't we be like that? And it's just so heartbreaking, and that's why I love watching other other teams, because it's great to see what we can improve on. But there's so many aspects of other opposition's games, their game styles, that we just Hawthorn.
Unbelievable. They're below us, right?
Yeah,
their fans would be having a more enjoyable year than we are right now, because they know in 2-3 years they'll be good.
Yeah,
because they're playing a good brand of footy. And they'll be playing the same brand of footy when they're good.
Yeah.
When they're good. And the problem with us is these guys have had 784 different coaches and 784 different styles where they don't know what the fuck they're doing out there. They don't know what they're doing out there.
Yeah.
And it's clear to see. And I don't think there's much I want to say, Pato, because and Gold Coast, Levi Casbolt put the dagger in next weekend. If that happens, I'll fucking die in the MCC tomorrow, next week. You see me lying face first in level 1. Seriously.
Levi and Nick Holman is going to fucking put You watch, Daff. They're going to put him over the line. They're going to win by 23.
If we lose, I'll call it right now. If we lose next week, Voss is gone.
Well, yeah, wow. And I wouldn't even be surprised. And it's unbelievable how, And it's unbelievable because I've been saying from day dot, I've been saying, no, we have to back this guy in. But you have to change something. Boss, come out this week and stand up for yourself as an AFL coach for a start.
Yeah.
Like, I said it 2 weeks ago. I'm like, this guy's got his second chance of being an AFL coach. There's no way he would take that for granted. If you don't laugh, you cry. I'm changing. We are changing the podcast to that. So, of course, the last segment, a bit of a more positive note. I think it's pretty obvious of what we're both going to go with. But of course, best on ground, Daffy boy. What do you think? Best on ground. Who do you think?
Adam Chera. If he doesn't win the BNF, I'll support someone else next year, because that'll be the biggest rigged BNF I've ever seen in my life. He's just been good. It's been good to see. He's been the shining light in a season that has really been not enjoyable at all. I was so frustrated today watching the other game. Obviously today's was a bit of a dogfight in terms of just two good teams going at it, but seeing those Melbourne fans up and about, and they've gone through the same stuff as we have in terms of bad footy, and they've come out on the other side, and we haven't yet. So Yeah, Ches, good on you, mate. Just keep going because he's light years ahead of our other midfielders.
Yeah.
And it's good to see, and hopefully he continues, and hopefully he can perform like that next week, and we sing the fucking Carlton song at the end of the game because 6 losses in a row, Pato. What? We haven't lost 6 in a row since Bolton.
Wow. That says something, doesn't it? No, seriously, that says something because I thought maybe Sane would have come through Teague, but yeah, that says something, doesn't it?
And Teague, so first 34 games as coach, but all those 3 coach, I think Bolton was 12 and 20 something, just because obviously he started the rebuild.
Yeah, rebuild.
Which is expected. Teague was 14 and something.
Yeah.
And Voss is the same
as them.
Teague. He's only got one more draw than Teague. So he's got one less loss and a draw.
Unbelievable.
And the list that's supposed to be ready.
Yeah. And that's once again down to a board decision where they have chosen this coach. We don't know if it's the wrong coach. We don't know yet. But if they have chosen, but they've chosen this guy. The board have chosen this guy. They've chosen plenty of coaches prior, but they've once again chosen this coach to lead the football club and to lead us to success. And right now, it doesn't look good at all. Does not look good at all. So, of course, best on ground for me. I think there's no one else who maybe. I was actually about to say Walshy, but there's no way you could say Walshy. So, of course, best on ground, Adam Chera. I think he has to get the chocolates. And of course, that's of course the last segment. And of course, just before we finish, I think we have to say congrats to probably the leader of the Carlton community, I guess, as a sense. Bull Broad. So, of course, 10,000 subscribers to them on their YouTube channel. Absolutely fantastic to see that. Also, as another podcast that we're kind of sharing our thoughts of the game each and every week and sharing our thoughts of the club. I think Terry and Bull Broad as a whole, they're probably by far the guys that we try and look up to and try and follow in a sense where we want to try and get towards that. Of course, we're going in a little bit of a different path where we want to try and build our own path, and we want to, and I feel like we've done quite well in that sense. But yeah, I think it's congrats to Blue Broad. I think I know how hard Terry works, and of course his team at Blue Broad. So absolutely fantastic, and definitely I'm sure you want to touch on a few things as well before we wrap up the episode on Blue Broad.
Yeah, no, I shot Tez a message this morning just talking about how Blue Broad's definitely inspired us to get a podcast going, and many other podcasts. There's double-digit podcasts right now, which is fantastic for all supporters to get different views. I think the mainstream media is starting to take a back seat, and these fan channels, whether it's Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Saints, there's all these fan TV accounts, and it's really good to see. And I think, obviously, like we said, the supporters are the lifeblood of this club, and just shout out to Terry because he's been, with fan cams and stuff like that, he's been able to get thoughts from all these supporters that we wouldn't be able to hear.
Yeah.
And personally, I've been on a few of the videos on Blue Broad early on, which was an honour because he's grown so much, and meeting Tez at a few games here and there has been great, and he's a good person. And considering we've been bad for the last few years, it's hard to make content. We know how hard it is right now. The motivation to make content, whether it's social media or the podcast itself or episodes, because he's doing reviews and player ratings, he's doing everything. So, and sitting through 2 hours of listening to Carlton fans about the game for 2 hours. So, no, shout out to you, Tez, and everyone involved at Blue Broad.
Yeah, completely spot on. I know, as I said, then I just think with Terry, he also sees and he explains the game really well. And he always explains in his previews and reviews, and I actually kind of watch his previews and reviews to try and get a little bit of information to try and make us, or me personally, but I'm sure you do as well, Daffy Boy, to try and improve our, insight to the game. Of course, we all have our thoughts and opinions, but I think he's probably been that guy that when he started in 2017, 2018, there was no one else So when he actually came out with our channel, it was fantastic. And even I got on board, I think it was 2019, when I started watching, and I was like, mate, this guy, how could this guy go through it? And then now we're actually doing it 2 or 3 years later, and now we're in 2023, where we're in our third season. So, but yeah, I mean, once again, 10,000 subscribers, I think it's absolute credit to you, Terry. But yeah, I think it's all the Blue supporters, I guess, just getting on, and really following this, I guess, army to make sure that, and really try and hope that this club can get towards, hopefully, some success. But Daffy boy, once again, another really shit performance, a very tough review to do once again after this 34-point loss to Essendon Football Club. But Daff, is there anything else you want to touch on for the episode?
Yeah, just enjoy the week and don't think about Carlton, even though it's hard to think about it every second of the day. So, Blue Baggers, just get around your loved ones and your friends and whatever, your partners, whatever. And I'll see you all there at the MCG and next Sunday. What are we doing ourselves?
I'm thinking, I'm just like, no, there's no way to go next Sunday. But you watch, I'll be there. I'll be there supporting. I'll be there with my buddy, with my chips.
We'll always be there.
Hey,
we'll always be there. We'll always be there.
Always. I mean, we will always be there every single week. We show our support, and because there's no other way. And yes, but it's our choice to do that, because we want to see these guys go up. We want to see these guys go towards that, just walk towards glory and reach that Hall of Fame, I guess, where you are premiership players. That's one thing, and I just really hope one day, and I'm sure we will, but it's going to be bloody tough, but I'm just hoping that one day these players in this club can work towards another plan where they can just work towards a premiership. That's one thing. I just want us to be up there and be back to where we were, to where Carlton is, where we were, like the Carlton blood. It's just unbelievable. So, make sure to all the viewers out there, like, comment, subscribe. Make sure on YouTube, try and subscribe. I think we're almost about to reach 500 subscribers, so I think that's great. And especially after our third year actually. So, but yeah, I think it's absolutely great. And of course, on to all of our social platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even LinkedIn as well. There's plenty out there. Twitter as well. So make sure you try and get around all those social platforms. And of course, our Spotify, of course, our podcast platforms as well. There's still plenty out there. So make sure to try and show us some love. And there will be one day, Baggers, where we will be it will turn towards success, and it will change eventually. So, Daffy boy, absolute pleasure going to the game with you last night, and of course doing this review. And to all the Baggers out there, and especially to you, Daffy boy,
up the Baggers.
The Baggers.